Good morning, party people. Welcome to it. This is Crunch Time, sponsored by Fanduel. Bringing you up through the early lock. We'll bring you to it, through it. Talk some home run picks. We'll give you everything you need. And I'm joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got one, Tasteful Tides, Tim in the house. What up, man?
Did you just call us party people?
I did. Well, hey, if you're up at 9:30 or whatever it is, if you're up this early, you're partying.
I've been up for like 6 hours, Kevin. I mean, this is like I'm ready. I'm ready, almost ready for dinner. So.
Right, you're ready for bed. Hey, well, happy that you jumped on with this early show, and it's kind of a big slate despite the weird start time, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty good slate. Interesting split slate. We got five or six games later, 5 games today. So I mean, it's a good day for baseball for sure.
Very good. Well, we got Keith Eister as well, the Iceman, coming to us from, was it Mountain Time? So it's 9:30 by you, right?
I'm in Pacific Time still down here in Arizona. So yeah, I have not been up for 5 or 6 hours, more like 5 or 6 minutes.
Wait, is it really 8:30? Am
Yes.
I doing the math right? It's 8:30 where you are right now?
8:30 in the morning, yes, sir.
That's blowing my mind. That is absolutely wild that it is 8:30. Well, good morning to you. Happy that you're up early and rocking with us. How are you feeling about this slate?
Pretty good. Short slate, but I think there are a couple of different ways to go. There's actually a fair amount of options on the pitching side. So ownership isn't too bad. On these smaller slates, sometimes you can see guys upwards of like 50% and not really seeing any of that. So there's going to be chalk for sure, but it's not going to be terrible chalk, I don't think.
Okay, very good. As far as the weather goes here, it's really nice. Literally every single outdoor game has fantastic hitting weather. My favorite, I guess, is Cleveland, but every single spot, it's hot, it's humid. In a few games, you've got winds blowing out. It's just really nice hitting weather. So take advantage of that and play those outdoor games with great hitting weather is all I will say. And there's no rain concerns at all. So with that out of the way, let's just jump into it. Let's talk some pitchers. And Tim, you want to start me off?
Sure. Yeah. So really, I think we should start with Joe Ryan, highest strikeout rate on the slate. He's going to be the most popular pitcher on both FanDuel and DraftKings, but not by a huge margin, right? So, like, it's not like he is going to be, like, super, super chalky. But I think that if you're playing cash games on DK or FanDuel, he should be kind of your go-to guy. I think an interesting pivot would be a guy like Zach Eflin. He not quite the strikeout ability, but also gets a good matchup against the Marlins. So I think that he would be an interesting pivot. Not somebody that I'm looking for in cash games, but definitely fine in tournaments. Freddie Peralta, kind of in the same boat. Kind of more a tournament play than a cash game play. Sandy Alcantara, man, he's the guy that I'm really kind of struggling with, like, what to say about. He's a really, really great pitcher who has had he was unbelievable last year. He has really come back down to earth this year. He's clearly not the same pitcher that he once was, but he's also not priced like it anymore. So he's okay. There is a lot of strikeouts in this Tampa Bay lineup, which is another thing. But it's scary because Tampa Bay is really good. I'm considering playing him in cash games. I totally understand if people don't want to do that though, because it's a little bit scary. And then Gavin Williams on DraftKings, I absolutely love. Just in tournaments at 6,500. He has been wildly inconsistent. He's a rookie. He's kind of been all over the place, but he has had 2 great starts against this very same Kansas City team. I think that he is going to be a good pitcher eventually, and we've seen flashes of big time upside. So for 6,500 on DraftKings, I think he's interesting. FanDuel, I'm not interested. I'm not going to use him as my single pitcher really in any format. But on DraftKings as a cheap SB2 to get to all the premium bats, I absolutely love him.
Okay, great stuff. Ice, let's talk what your strategy is here. You mentioned nobody was really going to be the chalk, and you're not kidding. This is really spread out. There's a lot of guys you can go with here.
Yeah, it is pretty spread out. I agree with Tim that the two highest priced guys, Eflin and Ryan, are the top two pitchers on the slate. I'm leaning towards going overweight on Ryan as opposed to Eflin. He's a little bit higher owned, but he does have more strikeout upside. Really good matchup there against Seattle, who has one of the higher strikeout rates in baseball. Of the top two, I prefer Ryan for tournaments. Just feel like the upside is there a little bit more. The Alcantara thing is very interesting. Last season, he was incredible. He used to throw like 7 innings, 110 pitches in every start. He's been more in that 95 to 100 range for pitch count, and he's really only getting through 6 innings in most starts. So his upside from last season came in the fact that he went so deep into games. But the price tag is really interesting. And like Tim mentioned, this Tampa Bay lineup has quite a bit of strikeouts. They have overachieved, at least according to like preseason expectations. They're starting to come back to earth a little bit. It's a great ballpark for pitching. So I believe Alcantara is firmly in play. Not a guy that I don't think I've played him much at all this season, but shorter slate, definitely in play. The Gavin Williams thing, I completely agree with him. Like, he's been inconsistent. He hasn't had the longest leash, but he gets a fantastic matchup here against Kansas City. That price on DraftKings where we need 2 pitchers, very much in play. And then a tournament pitcher that I'm on that perhaps no one is going to play is Bryce Miller. The pitch count is leaving a lot to be desired. He has not thrown over 75 pitches in any of his last 3 starts. This is a big-time prospect. He has a big-time fastball, like elite stuff we're talking about here. I think it's a situation where you can just hope he racks up a ton of strikeouts. Minnesota is the highest strikeout team in baseball. You might only get 5 innings and 80 pitches out of him here, but I think that he has upside for like 8 or 9 strikeouts in those 5 innings. So he's a little bit overpriced for what he's been doing here recently from a leash perspective. But I think the strikeout upside is incredible in this matchup.
Okay, and then Maryi Don Yeezy in chat says, "What about Irvin? I feel like we've named damn near every pitcher on the slate."
I was just gonna ask Keith, like, what do you think about Irvin? I think he's very, very interesting. If you're like, if I'm making like 20 teams and a 20 max, maybe put him in like 2. You know, like I think he's really, really interesting. It's not someone that I want to get like extremely overweight the field on, but I think we have him as 12%, and so maybe if I match the field at like 10, you know, like so 2 or 3 lineups and a 20 max, I really have no issue with that. But I'd be interested to hear what Keith says.
Yeah, I'm on board as a tournament dart throw. I don't think Jake Irvin is very good, but the Colorado Rockies offense is also not very good. Every time I seem to stack against him, it does not go well. So we're going to talk about Colorado bats a little bit too, I think. You can play both sides of this game. Like, I could see a scenario where nobody on this slate puts up more than like 25, and the savings down to Irvin, if he can get you 15 points. I think it's DK only that we're talking about this, just to clarify.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very much in that same Gavin Williams mode. He saves you enough money. If he puts up 15, I think that might be enough on the slate.
Because the bat has Irvin as their overall SB5. So I mean, it's like, you know, Cardi's not on to defend himself, but I mean that's a big projection for a $5,300 pitcher. So I mean he's projected better on the bat than Gavin Williams is straight up. So I mean I really have no issue with him in tournaments.
Okay, very good. Let's talk about some of the bats and some of the stacks already. Stan is asking, how about a Kansas City stack? Mike is asking, what about a Washington stack? So Ice, I will let you kind of lead us through what's the chalk, and then what else do we like?
Yeah, I think Washington and Kansas City are both in kind of the top tier of stacks today. Hitting is pretty spread out too. I think there's a very clear 5 offenses against weaker pitchers, and then there's 5 teams that are facing pretty solid pitchers. So the teams that I have in the top tier would be Cleveland, Washington, Colorado, Kansas City, and Milwaukee have the 5 best matchups on the slate. Cleveland is a team that doesn't offer a ton of power upside. but they're facing a pitcher who gives up a ton of power in Alec Marsh. So Cleveland would be the top stack for me. They have the highest run total on the board, but they're also coming with the highest ownership. Guys like Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor are going to be among the highest owned hitters on the slate. So I'm fine being underweight on some of them to go overweight on some of these other teams. Washington, I think, would be my highest exposure stack. Peter Lambert is not a good starting pitcher. Washington is not a great offense on paper either, but there's some good pieces here. Candelario is a guy I really like in particular, and I think they have the best matchup on the board. The Colorado bats we were just talking about, Jake Irvin, lower strikeout rate. He seems to be fortunate with the BABIP and things like that. So I'm not as on Colorado as much either compared to their ownership numbers. They're fine. They're pretty left-handed, which is helpful. Irvin does struggle to lefties a lot more than he does to righties. So if I'm targeting Colorado, it's going to be primarily the lefties. The Royals, we talked about the hitting weather a little bit there. I know you have an over bet up there on scores and odds. Gavin Williams is in play just because of the price, but he has struggled plenty this season. Kansas City is not talented. They do have a couple of talented bats, Bobby Witt Jr. being the obvious choice. Sal Perez has some power. MJ Melendez has shown flashes in the past. So I think Kansas City more of a 3-man stack, I think. Just because the talent throughout the lineup is not great, but I think Kansas City very much in play, especially when you get the weather bump there. And then the Brewers against Ben Lively are the other team that would be in my top tier. Lively, just not a great starting pitcher. Yelich sets up really well against him. Part of the problem with Yelich is his ground ball profile. Lively is a fly ball pitcher, so that definitely helps out Yelich today.
Okay, did get a question from Bossbra, actually just a comment. He says, Milwaukee's going to be chalky. Is there anything too chalky? I feel like pitchers are kind of spread out. Bats are kind of spread. Are you worried about the chalk anywhere?
Not on any one stack in particular. I think the Cleveland guys I mentioned are the biggest concern, Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor. Mm-hmm. Milwaukee is going to be fairly owned, especially Yelich. Looks like Contreras we have projected for quite a bit on DK where you have to play a catcher. Colorado is cheap, and that's inflating their ownership a little bit. But it is pretty spread out. Like, I think outside of Ramirez and Yelich, I wouldn't be too worried about ownership.
Okay, very good. Tim, I want to bring you in here. Ice gave us 5 stacks. Do you agree with those 5? You got another team to throw in? Where are you?
Cleveland, absolutely. I would consider the consensus top stack on the board today. I think they're also going to be the heaviest owned. So do what you want with that information, right? Like it's Cleveland. They're not a high power team. Yeah. So it's not like there's some kind of like juggernaut powerhouse team that's going to hit. I mean, they could, but I mean, they're probably not going to hit like 7 home runs here, So they are, in my opinion, a little bit more accessible on Fanduel. We got guys like Will Brennan, who got a really nice bump up in the lineup. He's my home run call, like we talked about pre-show, plus 900 on FanDuel. I really like that. I really like that bet. He's like a really good cash game play, I think. So Cleveland's like kind of like the consensus chalk, I think. I really love Milwaukee. Like Keith mentioned, Washington is fine. If Colorado's going to be this high owned, I never really want to have that much faith in a chalky Colorado team. I don't really care who they're facing. That makes me a little bit nervous. But this slate is really not that great. I mean, it's kind of like spread out. None of these offenses are like really like amazing. So, but Cleveland is definitely the top option for me, followed by Milwaukee, then Washington. So those would be my top 3 clearly. And then I don't know. I guess there's nobody really on Colorado that I really want to say like this is the guy. I will say that I'm really thrilled. Not that he's hurt. I never root for injuries, but I'm glad Jesse Winker is not in the lineup because he's dirt cheap and he's terrible and he projects well all the time. And I end up playing him in cash games and he absolutely sucks. So I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry about that today. Sal Frelick is a really good play for the Brewers. I think he's 3,200 on DraftKings and 2,900 on FanDuel. Either way, he's a good price. So I think he makes for a really good option in both cash and GPPs.
Okay. Very good. Guys, we still have, I don't know, I think maybe 20 minutes here until lock. Let's go around the horn position by position, and then we'll do some home run picks, take some questions. Tim, start us off with catcher.
Yeah, so probably William Contreras is the top option, and I think that you can play him on FanDuel too. Just for the record, like we don't have to play catchers on FanDuel, but I think he'd be completely fine play. Same thing with Sal Perez. You could play him on DraftKings and FanDuel. He's very, very cheap on FanDuel. I think he's 2,800 over there, so I think that that's completely fine. After that, it gets a little bit, I don't know, sketchy. Ruiz for the Nats, I think, is a fine play. David Fry might be a good cheap punt on DraftKings at 2,700. Past that, the only thing would be these guys would be part of your stacks. But other than that, I have no interest.
It looks like on FanDuel, I'm seeing MJ Melendez has got a bunch of little tags.
Oh, yeah.
So he's catcher and outfield eligible.
Yeah,
I assume.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. I would prefer probably putting him in the outfield, but yes, you absolutely, that is a good point. You could put him in the catcher spot. He's a really good play today. So yeah, good point.
And you'd rather him be in the outfield? I feel like usually there's a ton of options in the outfield as compared to, well, I guess
on FanDuel you can play. Yeah, it's catcher first.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Ice, any other names you want to throw in?
Exact same names I would have. Sal Perez, even as a one-off, even in a lineup that you're playing Gavin Williams, I think on this slate is totally viable. William Contreras, clearly the top guy, but also coming in one of the highest owned catcher for sure. Ruiz would be in play. I really like David Fry as a tournament pivot. And then just one other name I'll throw out is Freddie Fermin for Kansas City. Most people are going to click Sal Perez if they're stacking Kansas City. Playing Fermin over Perez, who has struggled this year, is a great way to differentiate Kansas City stacks.
Great. How about first base?
All right. So Josh Naylor is clearly the top guy for me here. He's been on a tear lately, has a fantastic matchup against Marsh here. Great hitting weather. So Naylor, clearly the top play. Going to come with quite a bit of ownership. But short slate, I think you can eat some of that. Toglia is a cheap option for Colorado. We're definitely targeting lefties against Irvin. He's up in the fifth spot. He's really cheap. Don't mind that. Meneses and Dominic Smith, both Washington bats that you can play at first base. Luke Raley against Alcantara. I think if I'm targeting one of those five teams that have tougher matchups, that Tampa Bay would be that team. It's not a great park for hitting, but Tampa Bay's been incredible on offense. Alcantara hasn't quite been the same guy. Luke Raley, I don't mind as a cheaper first baseman.
Good stuff. Tim, first.
The only guy that I'd mention, I know that he's not great, but if you need the salary, Dominic Smith for the Nats, I think it would be an interesting, like if you're double paying up for pitching and you still want to get exposure to Washington, I think 2,700 on DraftKings is a really good play. The bat absolutely loves Mike Ford today at 2,500. They have him as the second best first baseman. He does come with some pinch hit risks, so that would definitely, clearly this is only a tournament option play, but I think he's worth mentioning.
All right, how about second?
So Jimenez, Andres Jimenez for the Guardians is very, very cheap on FanDuel. I think he's viable in all formats. He is more expensive on DraftKings, but I still think he's a strong play at 4,000. Bryce Terang is 2,300 on FanDuel and 3,100 on DK. We've mentioned that we like Milwaukee quite a bit. Terang's not like the best hitter, but he does offer some speed upside. We like the stack and we like the savings, so I'm fine with him. Michael Massey, very, very cheap, 2,300 for the Royals. I think he'd be an interesting punt. Second base is not great, so Brandon Lau against Alcantara. Like if Alcantara is going to be popular, which I think he's going to have some ownership, I don't think the Royals are going to. I don't think the Rays are going to have that much ownership. So getting a great bat like that, I think is a great play for tournaments.
Okay, Ice, what are you doing at second?
Yeah, I agree with the Lau call. I absolutely love him in tournaments. Big power guy. He's had a bit of a down season, but that power is still there. It's very risky, but that's what we're looking for in tournaments is somebody who can hit 2 home runs, and Lau is certainly in that category. Julian for the Twins is a cheaper guy. Certainly don't mind. He's been hitting the ball really well here recently. Also on FanDuel, Ryan McMahon is second base eligible, and he's only $3K. He's projecting as massive chalk over there on FanDuel. That second base eligibility, I would definitely utilize that if I was playing him.
How about third?
Jose Ramirez is going to be the guy that leads everything off. He's the top hitter on the slate. Awesome matchup, awesome hitting weather, awesome hitter. Jeimer Candelario is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. Love him as a pivot. Love his matchup against Lambert. Eugenio Suarez, a guy who has big time power. You can always play. The aforementioned Ryan McMahon has third base eligibility. If you're not playing him at second, he's third base only on DK. And Ellie De La Cruz should always be somebody to consider.
Okay. Tim, your thoughts on third?
The only other people I mentioned, maybe Willie Castro, 2,300, and then Andrew Monasterio for Milwaukee. You could play him at second base also. Just cheap options that you can fill your stacks in with. They're not like the best overall plays. Clearly, J-Ram is going to be like the most, I would say, like the most polarizing hitter on the entire slate. Like if you get him right today, then you are, whatever you decide to do with him, that's gonna be the key. So if you fade him, in a large field GPP and he gets 0, you're gonna be ahead. You're gonna be ahead of the field, especially in single entries. Like he's gonna be super super high owned. I mean, I love him. I love him every single day. He's 100% a cash game play, but he's going to be super super high owned in tournaments.
Okay, shortstop.
Yeah, so Willie Adames is my favorite. I really like attacking Ben Lively, so I really like the Brewers today. So Adames would be my favorite. CJ Abrams would be kind of my favorite cheaper option. I absolutely love him, especially now that he's batting leadoff. He's just been kind of doing like everything for them ever since they brought him up to the top spot. Bobby Witt is, I think, too cheap, at least on FanDuel. He's only $3,100 on FanDuel. Like he's way too good of a hitter to be that cheap. He's more expensive on DraftKings, but he's completely fine for tournaments. We haven't mentioned Ellie De La Cruz once, I don't think. Not the best spot, but I mean he's a high upside player. So I mean, if you're making a lot of teams today, don't forget about him. I mean, Peralta's a great pitcher and he's a good option today, but any team any day could end up breaking the slate. So Ellie De La Cruz, I think, is at least worth mentioning.
Okay, outfield.
Do I get to do some shortstops?
Oh, I guess I'll let you do shortstop. My bad.
No, I'm just kidding. It's the exact same names, really. Yeah. I don't even have anyone else to add, really. I love CJ Abrams. He's still too cheap since his promotion to the leadoff spot. Adames is right up there as the top play on the slate. Bobby Witt Jr. too cheap, and Ellie De La Cruz for just the pure upside. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. Now, how about some outfield?
All right, outfielders. Christian Yelich in a great spot against a fly ball pitcher. Always the time we want to target Yelich. Julio Rodriguez for upside as a guy to play off of Joe Ryan, who's probably the highest owned pitcher on the slate. Certainly don't mind him as a one-off. Again, you can even play him in lineups that you're using Ryan on a shorter slate, I think. Nolan Jones is really cheap for Colorado. He would be my second favorite Rocky behind McMahon, I suppose. Let's see here. MJ Melendez, we touched on a little bit already. I love Sal Frelick as a cheaper outfielder for the Brewers, a very talented prospect. I think he's top 50 in all of baseball. Had an outstanding debut. Just a really talented hitter. So definitely like that call. Tim mentioned him earlier. Let's see here. Love Tim's Will Brennan call as well. I'm on board with that with his bump up in the lineup. Super cheap bat. A guy nobody's playing who has massive power. I mean, I'm looking for tournament plays who can break the slate. Jorge Soler is certainly in that mold. It's not a great park for home runs, but Soler has some of the biggest power in all of baseball. Tough matchup there against Eflin, but he can certainly hit a home run or two today.
Yeah, very good. Tim, your thoughts in the outfield?
Same idea as Keith. Absolutely. Just from a construction standpoint, like I'm noticing that like some like Lane Thomas is like very similar price to like guys like Yelich and Julio Rodriguez, and we've talked about how we like the Nats today. So don't forget to like pivot some of that chalky Yelich into some Lane Thomas, even though I know that sounds stupid. But I mean, we know the Nats are in a good spot, and we should definitely be adding in some of these guys as pivots. But yeah, it's Yelich is definitely going to be the cash game guy. Like every cash game team is going to be starting like with J Ram and Yelich, right?
Yeah.
And then I think a lot of single entry teams are going to be starting with Yelich and J-Ram. So, I mean, those two guys are going to be like the guys that you have to make stands on and decide what you want to do, decide what your risk tolerance is. They are, quote unquote, the best plays, but this is baseball. That doesn't really necessarily mean anything. I think, I don't know if Keith mentioned Max Kepler, but I really like him quite a bit. He's very, very cheap on both sites. So I think he makes for a strong value play.
Okay, good stuff. Let's see. Tim, we did have somebody in the Discord say, who was your home run pick? They missed it. It was, you just mentioned him again. What the hell was his name?
Will Brennan. He was Will Brennan's plus 900 on Fanduel. At least he was as of, 5 minutes ago.
We'll see if you juice the lines. You're talking people onto the bet. We'll see what happens here.
I doubt it, Kevin. I doubt it.
Ice, you got a home run pick or two for me?
Give me Jeimer Candelario. Just love the way that the Nats set up against Lambert here today.
Okay, excellent. Guys, we have 7-ish minutes until lock. Let's see if we got a few questions. As always, make sure you're hanging out with us in the RG Discord. And did I mention that this show is sponsored by FanDuel? Sign up for the FanDuel Sportsbook if you're in a legal sports betting state. Take advantage of their awesome bonus offer. New customers bet $5, get $100 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions do apply. And then we've got the FanDuel Single Entry Series, sponsored by RotoGrinders, going on for the later slates. That's just a no-brainer. You should be getting in that before it fills up every single day. Like, it is one of the smartest things you can do. So make sure you're signed up for the RotoGrinders FanDuel Single Entry Series. Let's take some questions here in the Discord. Luke Cage says, Tim, DKGPP, you want Ryan and Williams or Alcantara and Eflin?
I was struggling with that same thing. I went Ryan. I went Ryan Williams.
Okay, and this is, I guess, another pitcher question. Ice, I'll come to you for this one from Amateur Hour. Of the top 4 expensive pitchers in a DK single entry, please pick 2. So it says of Ryan, Eflin, Peralta, and Miller.
I will go Ryan for the strikeout upside, and personally, I'm taking some shots on Bryce Miller today. I love his matchup against Minnesota. They have a lot of power. They're pretty left-handed, which is not ideal, but just you're getting a massive ownership discount on him compared to the other 3.
Okay. While we're here talking pitchers, Chinatown says, Tim, I missed your favorites in DK Cash for pitchers.
So it's definitely Ryan, and then I think you got to make a decision between Alcantara and Williams. Believe it or not, probably Alcantara is safer. So for cash, that's what I would go. So I would go Alcantara and Ryan.
Okay, very good. Let's see. DK Cash, Tim, right back to you here. Is Wallner okay as a last piece in order to get Yelich? Is that a real person? Walner? That doesn't even look like a real
He
name.
is a real person.
Okay.
How much is Walner? I gotta find how much is Walner. He was not somebody I was considering.
Looks like he's 2,100 hitting cleanup.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's okay. Yep.
Okay. Luke Cage, DKGPP, Ice. You want Ryan and Williams? I feel like, did we not just do this question? Ryan and Williams or Alcantara and Eflin?
Yeah, that's the one we just did.
Yeah, all right. DK Cash, Ice, Friedel, Quan, or neither?
I think for Cash, that Quan is fine. He needs multiple events to get there for a tournament, but he's pretty safe as far as he's going to put up some points. He gets on base a ton. He has stolen base upside, and I love his matchup today. So I think Quan is fine for Cash.
You ready for my hot take? We're going to see a Quan bomb.
Oh, boy.
A Quan.
Oh,
Does he
boy.
have any on the season? I don't know.
I think he might have one.
I think he has one.
Quan bomb going down. Lock
And
it in.
I think he has like one barrel on the season.
Oh, man.
He actually has 4 on the season.
Hey.
That's
Okay.
Man.
I mean, that was like a month ago that I checked last. So I mean, he's got three in a month.
He's heating up.
Yeah, they've come recently for sure.
Yeah.
He's on a heater.
Yeah, let's go, baby. Stan says thoughts on a Cleveland stack. You guys loved it. Thoughts on Twins bats? Did we talk about Twins bats?
We did not talk much. I'm like, they're really cheap, first of all. And Bryce Miller, like I said, he has not gone deep into games. So they're definitely in play. They have a ton of power, but they strike out a ton. So like they have plenty of upside, but there's a lot of risk there as well. Personally, just the slate dynamics have me on the Miller side of this, but I don't think it's crazy at all to love Twins bats today.
Okay. We'll go to Boss Bra's question. He says, in a Washington stack, Tim, you want Meneses or Smith?
If you could afford Meneses, then it's definitely Meneses.
Okay. Dan Jan says, Ice, Peralta is really bad. Why not a red stack?
Is Peralta really bad? I know he's been rough recently. He has a long track record of being very good. I mean, it's a small slate. You can play anybody on the slate.
Can I just say something about that real quick?
Yep, go ahead.
Like we had the same question about red stacks against Burns last night, and the Reds aren't cheap. They are extremely expensive. So even if they Babbitt Peralta and Peralta doesn't have a good start, doesn't mean that the red stacks is gonna get you there. So I mean, it's like they're really expensive. So I don't know. Like, I'm fine if people don't want to pitch Peralta. I'm fine if people want to even say Peralta's bad, which he isn't. But it's like, they're expensive. So I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Coach Energy says Ryan or Peralta in a GPP. Tim?
What was it again?
Ryan or Peralta in a GPP?
I'm going to stick with Ryan. I know he's more chalky, but I like him better.
Okay. Beast says Ice, Gavin Williams projected his percentage, so probably he means ownership.
Yeah, probably.
Wait, you just Oh, you were saying probably, like he probably meant that.
Yeah, what was his sorry, what's the question?
Gavin Williams projected ownership is, I think, what the question is.
What is it?
Yes.
It's 23%, I think, on DK.
Yep, that's what I'm seeing as well.
Okay. Ball says Williams. Tim, I'm giving this one to you. Williams, Jones, or Alcantara and Wallner?
The second one.
Okay. Guys, we are approaching the lock. We have answered all of the questions. See if we get one more question in here. I don't think so. I think we can bounce on out of here, even if it is a second or two early. We got to get Ice. He's got to go back to bed. It's we woke up early for the show. We got to get a nap in here. Are either of you gentlemen back for this evening slate?
I'll be back on Grinders Live with Dean.
Okay, very good. Tim, taking the rest of the day off?
I'm done.
Very nice.
Bedtime for Tim.
It's good stuff, man. Nice and early. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. As always, just a little thumbs up. Do keep in mind, we're trying to keep this show free, and the more eyeballs and likes and thumbs ups that we get, the longer, hopefully, we can keep it free. So hit us with a thumbs up. We're doing it for you. For Ice, for Tim, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love it. And we will catch you later today. You have been crushed.